What's up, guys? It's Lance back with another interview. Today we have Marie Davis Markham. She started running at the age of 8. She was a six-time national champion at the junior Olympic level, a six-time state champion at Lincoln High School, where she currently coaches at. She is a six-time All-American at the University of Oregon. She ran Nike post-collegiately, and she started coaching, like I said, at her alma mater, Lincoln, and she's been very, very successful year. She's qualified for NXN 3 times as a coach and 2 teams and 2 individuals. So that's pretty awesome. So Marie, how's your day been so far?
It's been great. We're stuck in an ice storm, but other than that, I'm happy to be here chatting with you tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you were blessed to be very, very successful at a very young age. What were some of the things that got you into running and helped you be successful?
Yeah, for me, running started out as like fun and joy, and all the kids in our neighborhood would do similar sports. We do soccer, basketball, and then track and field. And so I was part of the Portland Track Club, and I just loved it. It wasn't uber competitive, and I wasn't very good. I think I did the long jump and the 100 and finished last, but just loved what we did. And we started, like a lot of our workouts were blob tag and capture the flag. And for me, that just created so much joy. I was definitely competitive. I tried hard and did my best, but it was basically like a new community for me, that felt like something I was really part of, no matter how good or bad I was.
So you said you started at the 100. When did you start to get into distance running?
It was like definitely a couple years in. So I started running when I was 8. And I remember, this is kind of a funny story. I was reminiscing with my parents. I was probably maybe 10 or 11 at the time, so fourth or fifth grade. And I was at the State Junior Olympics meet. And after that, we were going to go on a family trip for like a week, right? And so a road trip. And, this is the late 80s, and there are no ATMs. So my dad has cash in his wallet, and he had $100 bill. And I remember seeing it and being like, oh my goodness, you have $100 bill. And I was like, if I win this race, can I have that $100 bill? And he was like, yeah, of course. Like, there's no way you're going to win this race. And sure enough, I won the race. And so that's the first time I realized, like, well, maybe I was either motivated by money, who knows, or I was competitive, who knows. But it was the first time I remember being like, I remember going up into the stands, and it took me like 20 minutes to remember about the $100 bill. But that's the first time I remember, like, oh, I just won something. Like, I'm running the 1500, not the 100 anymore. Maybe the longer I go, the better I'll get. And that's kind of when I figured it out.
So was what you're like explaining with what you did now essentially AAU now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's still some Junior Olympic stuff going on. So it was just like a state Junior Olympics. They also had some AAU stuff as well. But in Oregon, we were very more focused on like the TAC. I think it's the Athletic Congress or something like that. I don't remember, conference. And then, yeah, Junior Olympics.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't be motivated by $100 bill? I'll tell you what, if I was offered $100 bill, I think I'd PR.
Yeah, and this was in the late 80s. So $100 was a lot of money back then. I had to give
Prob-
half of it to my sister, and I
Probably
had to
like
put
a
a
hundred
quarter in
thousand.
the bank. So yeah.
Would
Yeah,
it be
who
like
knows?
a 100,000? Is that how much that would be
Yeah,
now?
probably $1 million, something like that. Yeah.
So you obviously said you went to Lincoln, and there's a bunch of schools in Portland. And was there as many schools there then as there was now?
Yeah, there was. The same schools were there. All the PIL schools, which is what we're a part of, were there. St. Mary's is an all-girls school. Jesuit at the time was an all-boys school. So I would not have gone to Jesuit. My junior year, they became a girls' school or co-ed school, and then Central Catholic was also there as well. But I was definitely a public school track the whole way.
Okay. So you said obviously you did the Junior Olympic stuff. Did you ever participate in any middle school stuff like with school, or was it always the Junior Olympics?
There wasn't that opportunity. There was a little bit of track and field in our middle school, but it wasn't as elaborate. We would compete in the same meets as them, but it was just after school meets. And I guess because they didn't have any opportunities as an elementary school runner, I just stayed with the club I was in. And so I was part of the Portland Track Club. And so I think there probably was something at my middle school, but I was already part of this program. So and it wasn't like what we think of now with clubs. It was just a way for kids to kind of get into the sport, around the different activities.
Yeah, I think that's pretty awesome though. That I going back to it. I think it's pretty awesome that you said your workouts are like all these games. It's kind of what I did in middle school as well. Our program does a great job, I think, with helping kids like start to write like running.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't hold on to it until high school, but I mean, some of them do. But at a young age, they enjoy it, and we love capture the flag. That, like you said, capture the flag. Who doesn't like capture the flag, right? That's like it's a fantastic game.
Yeah. And to be honest, that was such a long time ago that I don't remember a lot of it, but I have connected with my coaches then. And I was like, what did we do? And it was very, they're like, let's keep you moving. Like, you're doing kind of intervals and tempos within this running. And then we did a ton of work on form and mechanics and speed base. So we did a lot of really fast running as well as the blob tag and capture the flag.
So when did you start like actually training seriously and start putting in like actual workouts and actual miles?
To be honest, I don't really remember. I probably did some a little bit in middle school, I would assume. But I don't really remember. I do know in high school I completely did workouts. But it was the 90s. I was very low mileage based. I ran 15 to 20 miles a week in high school. I think my senior year, I looked back at my logs, and I think my senior year across, I got up to 20, 25 miles a week. But it was the 90s. Things were different then. Like
Yeah.
people ran really fast and then they rested for a long period of time. And we also, unfortunately, at Lincoln, we shared our infield with the baseball team. So we could not run on the back stretch. So every interval could only be 300 meters. And then every once in a while, like they'd switch innings or they'd do something different. And our coach would be like, okay, an 800. And we'd be like, what? Like that seems so far to have to run all the way around the track. But so we were limited to that for sure. But we like our workouts were hard. Like we ran fast. I remember, I was talking to our head coach, Eric Detman, the other day, and my favorite workout was 20 by 200. And we'd start at 40 seconds and we get down to 28 seconds. So we were rolling but we had more rest and intervals were shorter and things like that. Plus, like I only warmed up 3 laps on a track and cooled down 1 lap on a track. So like right there, if I upped my warm up and cool down, like my mileage would increase by a ton, I feel like.
So I know with my dad's circumstances, he always tells me there was no recovery days. So was that kind of the same for you?
I mean, it depends. When you're only running 15 or 20 miles a week, like there's a lot of recovery involved.
Yeah.
Um, my parents say, and I don't really remember this, they say that I never ran on the weekends, and I don't feel like that's true. I think I did. At least we had meets on the weekends and stuff like that. But for me, like we would run our off days were always 3 miles. And then every once in a while we would do like a 5 or 6 or 7 mile kind of longish run. But we were just so low mileage based in that time or whatever. So I feel like, but when you ran workouts, like you ran hard, like you were running race pace or faster in every interval. I mean, I talk now about like trying to do a tempo run, and I don't know how to do it because I have never run longer, slower efforts like that. And it's not slow, but I'm just not very good at it because we always ran really hard and then we rested for a long period of time.
So you say you rested for a long period of time. How far spread out would your workouts be?
Well, I mean, we probably had 2 workouts a week in high school, and then we would have 2 meets a week. So I was still getting 4 quality days in. But like if you're racing, it's hard to get a lot of mileage in on those days unless you're really purposeful of that. So if we're doing 2 workouts and I always didn't run the day before I raced. So then that's 2 days off right there. So I think I believed in recovery in that way very strongly. But yeah, we did so probably anywhere from 3 to 4 hard days a week in high school.
That like looking now, like obviously, like it's wild to think about, but that was the normal thing. Like
Yeah,
that was what people did.
yeah,
Obviously,
absolutely.
something that wouldn't happen now at a
Right.
high level, but
Yep.
I just think it's awesome hearing those stories because like I said, my dad says is like recovery paces if they were above like they were anywhere in the 6 minutes, it was like a really really slow day, which is
Yeah.
unreal to me.
And
But
Right. And I don't even remember in high school. I kind of know a little bit in college what that was like for me, but definitely in high school. It's like, and I also didn't have any measurable, distance because we were running in the city and there were so many stoplights and stuff. In college, I would run in places where there it would be marked a quarter mile, or people have gone on the bike path and marked every mile and stuff like that. So I had a better idea there. But in high school, it was just kind of going for it.
So I have to ask this question out of my curiosity.
Yeah.
When I was there, I got to run WAPA, and then we went over by Under Armour, and then we just kept going like north from there. We just kept going up. I forget what that's called.
Terwilliger, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, and I
Yep.
ran Willigard. Where are
Yep.
you running WAPAs and Willigards when I was there?
No,
When you were there?
so I remember I was having lunch with Coach Detman like 4 years ago, and he's like, I wish we had a hill that would just like go up, and then we had a shorter way to come down. And I was like, oh, the hill behind Zupans, and that's Wapa. So we found that hill like probably 4 or 5 years ago. And then Terwilliger, over past Under Armour, we would do that for sure. But that's like 3 miles round trip just to get there. So that was a longer day for us for sure. But I've looked back at my running logs and seen that I had run up to the chart house and back, which is like 8 miles. So you probably did something like that.
I really enjoyed those runs. I mean, for me
Yeah.
personally, it was a massive difference from running over the overpasses and just keep
Well,
going
and that's
3 miles.
that's the thing, is like we were always so good at running hills and cross country, because everywhere we go, right, is uphill or downhill, and then you have to return. So I feel like that was an advantage for us for sure, because it just felt like no big deal when there was a hill, whereas other people might have been like, oh, this thing's monstrous, whereas we just did it all the time.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I was really excited when we went on the WAPA when it was 3 miles up, 3 miles back. I was really excited when we hit 3 miles. I
Yeah,
was
let's turn around. Yeah.
so what were some of your racing experiences like? I mean, you won 6 state titles. I mean, what were some of your racing experience like in high school?
I was definitely a come from behind person. I like to sit and I like to kick. And that was pretty much how every race went. I mean, there were a couple races in high school where like I really wanted to get the district title in the 1500, and I had tried and I had tried and I had tried and I just like couldn't get it. And it was set the year I was born. So I was 18 years old. So the record was 18 years old. And I knew finally the district meet my senior year, I just had to go for it. And my coach at the time, Bob Williams, like just set it up perfect for me. And I won by 20 or 30 seconds, but I went out there and I got the school record or the district record by like 3 seconds. So that one's like really big deal for me, because that's not how I raced. I was not a like go from the gun type of person. My assets were that I had really good foot speed, and I could pass people. And I was also like, I was just someone who was really competitive and really tenacious. Like I didn't fall off very often. Like I was not going to get beat kind of person. And so sitting behind and kicking was advantageous for me for sure. And then in cross country, like we only ran, which is funny, we only ran 3K until my junior year, and we switched to 5K. So we were one of the only states where girls ran 3K. And so I remember going to the time it was Kinney, the last year of Kinney, which is now Foot Locker.
Okay.
Now it's something else. But the first year was my sophomore year, and I remember running my first 5K at Foot Locker West Regional and qualifying for nationals in my first 5K. And that's just a different beast in itself, figuring out how to run a 5K. And the same thing, I just felt like I never gave up. I just tried to do the best that I could. And I think that's one thing, like my coach nicknamed me Mad Dog, kind of because of Marie Davis, like MD, but it was just like I was going to show up, and on that day, like I was going to die on the finish line. I was pretty competitive for sure.
So do you still have that district record or no?
I don't. Ella Donahue, she beat that record. She runs for Union Nike now. She beat that record probably like 20 years after I did. So there's been three of us who have held it. Actually, maybe it might have gotten beat a couple years ago by Charlotte, the Wells girl.
Hmm. Okay.
So yeah, so I think there's been four of us since 1977 who have held that record. So it's pretty good.
That's a pretty good one to have, I'd say then.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
So out of can you walk me through what you won your 6 titles in?
Yes. So my freshman year, I say I accidentally won a state title my freshman year, which is completely true. Like in the newspaper, they would have this like who's gonna win, who the contenders are, and who's the dark horse. And I was the dark horse. And the person who was supposed to win just had an off day. And so the race kept going and kept going, and people kept falling off. And we're at Hayward Field and 100 meters to go. There's just two of us left. And I, like I always do, I just outleaned her and I won. So I won a 3K my freshman year. I won a cross country title my sophomore year. I won a 1500 my sophomore year, I think. I won nothing my junior year. And then I won the 1500, 3K, and 4x4. And our team won the state title my senior year.
That's pretty
So
awesome to bring home a team title too.
yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Was that isn't your last trophy, right? You guys trophy this year, correct? I mean, the past year.
Yeah, they Lincoln Trophy, like they won the boys and the girls in like 2006 or 7 or something like that. I can't remember. And then our boys won a trophy this past year.
Okay.
Yeah, or won the actual state
Yeah.
meet. Yeah.
I felt like I remember that. I was making sure I clarified.
Yeah.
So towards the end of your high school career, what kind of changed in your training from the beginning?
I think that like I think I developed in my confidence in myself. I went through a lot of ups and downs in determining like who I was, because I was always known as Marie the runner, and that was really hard for me. And so I think part of the reason that like I didn't run a lot of mileage was because I don't want to say like I rebelled from it, but I also was just like, I don't want to be only known as Marie the runner. I want to be all these other things. But I think by the time I got to the end of high school, I was proud of Marie the runner. Like I accepted that I was more than that, and I didn't care about like what other people said about me. And so in that regard, I became so much more confident. So like when I got that district record in the 1500 and ran 434, like I don't think I could have done that if I hadn't kind of gone through that like identity, not crisis, but work, I guess,
Okay.
because then I was able to like really focus on like I can do this. I'm not excuse me. I'm not just someone who can sit and kick, right? Like I can do this work. And then also just like by the end, like I had run on a world cross team. I had run in 3 Foot Locker national meets. Like I had won some state titles. And not only that, but I just loved competing and I loved being, a part of a group. Like our cross country team was ranked 7th in the country. We were really good. I loved being a part of that. And so I think that more than anything, I just became confident with who I was on the inside. And that like also helped my running in a big way.
That's definitely awesome. I feel like that always is a confidence booster, not just being known as a runner, like
Yeah.
as a human. Because I forget there was and I don't know who it was, but there was someone that actually, like, I feel like recently that did that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's very common to have, right? But I feel like I was just trying to connect it. That's gonna bug me though. I know
You'll
what it is.
think of it later.
Yeah, it'll just definitely pop up randomly. But
Yeah.
so what did some of the recruiting process look like for you? Obviously, you ended up in Eugene. What was some of the process like for you?
It was overwhelming, completely overwhelming. It's probably different than, what athletes are going through now because it was like I didn't have a cell phone, I didn't have an email address. I was just getting letters in the mail, which didn't feel hard at all because like there's a barrier there, right?
Yeah,
But I get phone calls at night, and some nights like I just didn't want to talk on the phone. I wanted to talk to my friends on the phone, not like some man from Vermont or whatever. And so that was really hard for me to be able to like process. And like I've always been someone who kind of is, I don't want to say I'm a pleaser, but I don't like to hurt people's feelings. I don't want to be disrespectful. And so sometimes that like overtook the process for sure. But like everyone told me I should take 5 visits, and as soon as I took 3, I was done. Like I didn't want to take any more. Like it was too exhausting. I don't like being in the spotlight, which is one of the reasons I don't like to karaoke. You can tell your dad that, your coach that. It's because I don't like to be up in front of people, and I'm better at it now. But I felt like, when you're on a recruiting trip, everyone's like asking you all these questions and like they want to get to know you, and they're like trying to make you happy. And for me, that just felt like everyone was just like looking at me and on me. So I went to Oregon and I really enjoyed Oregon. And I went to Arizona, which at Arizona at the time we got these like really great recruits. But as soon as I got there, they had told me like, we're going to run in the morning. It's really hot. Like we've got to run in the morning. And I was like, okay, like, yeah, maybe I could do that. And then I found out they would leave at like 4:30 in the morning. And I was like, never, I will never be able to do that in my entire life because they'd go drive places. They need to be done by 7. So they need to work out from 5 to 7 or whatever. So I was like, definitely not. And then I went to UCLA, and I for a long time I thought I was going to go to UCLA, but the hard thing for me is I would have been the number one runner my freshman year, and I just wasn't ready for that. Like I'd been the number one runner my entire life. I wanted to be able to follow. I wanted someone else to lead. I wanted to be able to challenge myself with in workouts with other people. And so I went to Oregon, and it was the most amazing experience ever.
That's awesome. I will say it was awesome when I got the blessing of being able to race at Hayward to see you under the stadium.
Oh,
I had to remember it. Like I thought I remember my dad saying Marie's down there.
yeah.
And I saw your picture. I'm like, oh, I think that's Marie. I
Yeah.
could be wrong. It said Davis, so I was pretty
Yeah.
sure, but I wasn't for sure.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and it's a picture of me and my teammate, which means like so much more because we did so much work together. So it's great.
That's awesome. I knew you were with someone, and I feel like I was gonna ask you that at one point, but
Yeah.
that was just a long day.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And then when
Um,
you're there, you're nervous and you're like anticipating what you're about to do. You're not like checking out all the paraphernalia and the murals and the whatever that's down there.
I don't think I've ever been more intimidated by like an object in my life. Like
Yeah.
walking, like being escorted there and like walking underneath the stadium and like there's literally like a whole track underneath the stadium. Like
Yeah.
it's pretty awesome facility, but like it's intimidating.
Absolutely. And I've never raced in that Hayward. Like it was intimidating enough before, but add what it is now, like all that sparkle and magic, like I couldn't imagine. Yeah.
How have you not? I mean, I feel like you have to at some point.
Well, I've run around on the outside screaming and cheering for our athletes, but yeah, I haven't. I've been down below and all that, but I've never, I mean, I just don't compete anymore, right? So I get nerves in a different way for our own athletes and stuff.
That I completely understand. I feel like I get nervous like watching some of my friends race. I feel like I get more nervous about them racing than I do mine.
That's a good teammate. I love that.
Like watching my some of my buddies like be successful is like it's pretty awesome because I know that they go through a lot to be able to get to that point and see them be successful and satisfied and happy with what they get. It's pretty awesome. Sometimes it doesn't end as they want to. Like one of my buddies, he's up north towards the Chicago area, and he was one of the favorites to like get top 10 at 3A, which is our highest level, and there's as you are on the state course that like the most iconic part is slightly downhill. Everyone's rolling. And so you go through that three times and there's like a power box and like another power box and like across I would say the stretch is like 1,000
Okay.
and there's two there and he ran into it and he was like in the all state area because the guy in front of him saw it too late, got out the way, and he didn't have enough time to react, and he fell down and got blown by the by the box, and it was wild.
Hi. Is that Detweiler?
Yeah, this is at Detweiler.
Oh, where's at the bottom, like when you go between the trees on the back side, the far side? Or
No, so do you know where the interstate's at?
yeah,
I mean the highway.
yeah.
When you're along the highway, it's like in the main portion,
Oh, okay.
not as you're in the back triangle area.
And yeah. Oh, that's horrible.
I know, I felt so bad. He was like bruised up and he has like scratches and scarred all. He still has a scar from it. So I mean, I think it's pretty cool, but I
Yeah,
mean,
that's awesome. He's gonna have
I,
that forever.
obviously, it's not cool, but I looked at because like obviously you see the splits on like mile split and like the live results. He had like the third fastest closing mile for the last mile in the whole field.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, I feel like I feel like I get to be that coach every now and then when I get to watch my friends race
Yeah,
essentially. But,
absolutely. It's wonderful. Yeah.
so I mean, did your training change much at all? Obviously, you're running like not many miles at all, and then to go into the University of Oregon. At the time, was Oregon running all those miles, or what did some of that training look like in college?
Yeah, I mean, some people did for sure. I progressed nicely. I trained in Eugene for 6 years. So I had finishing my master's there as well. But yeah, for my first year, I think I got to 30, 35 miles a week. I remember we were heading into Pac-10 meet or maybe the regional meet, and my some of my teammates were running 60 miles a week, and he had everyone cut back like in half or take a third off or whatever. And he was like, Marie, just keep yours the same. So I definitely started out like where I was, my long run was 8 miles. But my workouts were a lot different than high school, right? I was running with Melody Fairchild. I was running with all these really great runners who were all fifth years. We had 3 fifth-year seniors on our team. And so, like, the difference was, I remember showing up the first day of practice and going to a phone booth after practice and being crying and being like, I'm never going to make this team. Like, how am I going to run this fast? How am I going to run 5 miles every single day? And my parents were like, you'll be fine. But it was just that like energy everyone had. They were so excited to see each other. They'd been away from each other this summer that the run was just hot. Like everyone was ready to go, right? And for me, I was like, how am I going to survive this? So it took a while. Like I was our fifth and sixth runner. And finally at our Pac-10 meet, my coach, Tom Heinonen, was like, hey, I think you got more in you. Like, I think you're settling. And I was like, no way. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, these girls I've tracked my whole life. Like, I'm supposed to be behind them. I'm just a freshman. And he's like, how about this? Let's have you go out in your first mile at the Pac-10 meet in 5:10 and see what happens. And I was like, what? And I'm like, okay, sure. Like, I guess I will. And I went out in 5:10 and I finished ninth in the Pac-10 meet my freshman year. And I was our number 3 runner. And so then I realized, like, oh, yeah, wasn't sandbagging, but I just wasn't used to being in the middle. I was always in the front. So I didn't know how to do that. And so that was my breakthrough race for sure. And then regionals went well and nationals not as well. But like, it felt like it took that adjustment of believing in myself. The workouts were awesome. They were really hard, but I really enjoyed them. But similar to high school, is still the 90s. So we did a lot of cruise intervals. So a lot of Ks, a lot of 800s with 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes rest in between. So you're running pretty fast, but you have a lot longer to rest in between. And my coach didn't believe in running more than the equal distance of your race. So we never went above 5K of volume in terms of our workouts themselves, like our rest and our warm up and our
Yeah.
cool down would be more, but we would do 5 by a K, or we do, 6 by 800. And that was like where he topped us at.
Matt, I never even I never knew that. Who was your coach at the time?
His name was Tom Heinonen. He was there
No.
for
Oh yeah, you said that. Sorry.
yeah, no, he was there for like 30 years. And then he now coaches the club team at Oregon. So a lot of our Lincoln kids are actually being coached by him in Eugene, which is kind of fun.
I just need to say that I can hear you like in my mind with that phone call to your parents. Like I can hear you. You're I love how much you care.
I appreciate that. I mean, but I'm sure that's the same thing for like, it helps give me perspective. That's the same thing for like our freshmen who walk in the door, no matter how good they are, right? They're like in this new program, they're nervous, or the people who have never done it before. And it gives us all perspective. Like we've all been there in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, again, 6 national titles.
Yeah.
What were some of your racing experiences like at Oregon?
Yeah. So at Oregon, it was different than it is now. Like we did a lot of dual meets. Like we had a dual meet with Stanford and a dual meet with Washington and Washington State. And then we'd have a couple invites. And so I did a lot of running at the beginning where I was just hanging on, right? Like I'd try and hang on with Melody, or at the time, like Mary Slaney was training there and I would
Yeah.
run in races and hang on there. And so I had these great opportunities. And then as I progressed, I was able to get into races that were fit for me to like qualify for nationals or to run really great times. I was lucky my freshman year going into Oregon, I PR'd in the 3K by 20 seconds from high school and over 10 seconds in the 1500. So I did have a huge jump my first year. And then I was able to improve, I think, pretty much every year after. But yeah, like it was really fun to be at Hayward Field. Like you would run these races and it would be a dual meet, and everyone in the stands has like keeping score in the newspaper, like, oh, UCLA's now ahead by 4 points. Oh, now Oregon's tied. And it was just like, it was so fun. Like it was just like every single person mattered. And then as I got older and we'd have those dual meets, I would pace my teammates. So I would double a lot, and I would pace my teammates to get points for the team or to PR or to get qualifying marks, because I didn't need to go out there and run super fast when I had a big invitational coming up a couple weeks later. So things were always gamesmanship a little bit in those races.
So as you say, your sit and kick kind of went out the window in college.
No, definitely not. Like it was still there for sure. I would just hang on to a pack and yeah, and I would, I would at the NCAA meet, I think I finished ninth twice and 18th once. And I would say the year I finished 18th with 400 to go, I was probably in 35th place. And
Whoa.
I know that both times I finished ninth, I was at like just under 20th place with 400 to go. So yeah, I always, no matter where I was still able to like really finish, which to my coach and my parents and the people who loved me, they were always like, so what if you weren't that far back? Would you have finished further ahead? I'm like, yeah, maybe, but we'll never know. So
Yeah. I feel like that's a question I would always ask myself too. But I mean, that's pretty freaking awesome to be always that high up. I
yeah, it was good.
I mean, I feel like that's what I struggle with is kick, kick, kick. So you say you would just like sit and kick like literally wherever you're at, essentially. Like you say, all right, I'm not gonna go around this pack. We're just gonna now kick them at the end. Is that essentially it?
Pretty much. I mean, when you're running at that level, you're already running like at your PR pace. You're already running at a pace that's like, you're trying to win a national title. So you're already in it. And for me, it was like, why lead and why do this work when I know I have a kick? Like, I'm not going to let people go, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it just was my strength. And so it was, and it also like, I'll admit it was a little scary to like see myself, being up there and like admitting that I wanted to like win a national title or admitting that I wanted to push the pace. Like that was scary for me. It was safer for me to be able to just like be in the pack and then control when I could move, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So obviously you had some great experiences at the University of Oregon. You were blessed to be able to continue that after college. What was some of your professional training look like? Who was your coach?
Yeah. So the first 2 years I stayed at Oregon because I was finishing my master's. So I stayed with Tom Heinonen, and that was obviously seamless. I kept training with him. I trained with a woman named Annette Peters. She was a 1992 Olympian, and she was like amazing. She was just a role model to me that it still is today. Like she had this wonderful balance of life and running. She had just had a child when we started training. She was a teacher, which I was training to be a teacher as well. So we just like connected in such a great way. So that was awesome. Like I've looked back at some of my logs at that work and I'm blown away with like some of the workouts I did. Can't really remember and tell you anything off the top of my head without opening it up, but like just like things where I was like, I am so fit. Like it just felt so right. And then after I graduated from Oregon with my master's, I just was like, I can't stay in Eugene. Like I want to go. And that's one reason I almost went to UCLA is I live in Oregon. Like I wanted to move away. But when I went to Oregon, it was just the right place to me. So I decided to move to San Francisco and I got my first teaching job on the peninsula in a city called San Mateo. And at the time, a man named Jeff Johnson, Vin Lanana, they had just started a team called the Nike Farm Team. And they hired a coach named Coach Frank Gagliano. A lot of people call him Gags. A lot of people say he's one of the best, middle distance coaches. He was at not Gonzaga, he was at Georgetown for a lot of years. And I jumped in that program. And it was similar to like what a Bowerman program is now, or Union Athletics, or, you know, um, something, or like, Team Boss, where a whole group of people were there to train. But it was very different. Like no one got paid, right? You got uniforms, you were given a little bit of a stipend for meet entries, you were given flights to meets and stuff like that. And different people received different amounts based upon their performances. And it was big. There were 40 guys on the team and probably 15 to 20 women on the team. So it was like a big program. And definitely the coaches, I think were stretched thin because it was a lot. But Nike helped support it, but not a way that they fund things now. And, to be honest, it was a really hard transition for me. The coaching was very different styles of coaching in terms of the amount of work we did. Remember I said like we would never get above 5K, and in track like really not much, because in track there was still the 3,000, so that was my best, or like what I would focus on in college. So like we got a lot more hard work in, and I wasn't used to that. And then take it that you have this group of women and every single one of them was the best from their team in college. So now you have all these alphas in one training group, and someone was always on. And sometimes it was me, sometimes it was other people, but the pace was always hot, right? Like we were always pushing. And it was, I think for me, like I didn't not improve. I didn't like regress, but I didn't have jumps like I was hoping I would have. I stayed about the same as I was when I was back in Eugene. But I also got injured, which I got injured once in my 6 years at Oregon. And so that was hard for me as well. And I just felt like like the balance was off. I was a brand new teacher. I was teaching second grade. I have never seen so much snot in my life as I was with these second graders, my first year of second grade. Like I was sick all the time. Like I was so sick all the time. And I remember Gags being like, Davis, what's wrong with you? Why are you sick again? And I'm like, I'm a first year teacher. Like this is so hard. And I lived in San Francisco and I trained in Palo Alto, which is like 45 minutes away. So I just like stretched myself thin in everything I did. A lot of my teammates made running the number one, right? They lived 10, Palo Alto is like the most expensive place in the country. Like they lived 10 people to a house. They worked 6 hours at a running store and then they slept and they ran and they ate. And I don't know if I had done that, if I would have done any better. But I wanted to be a teacher. Like I was so excited to be a teacher that I was not willing to wait on that at all. So I loved it. Some of my best friends came from that team. I've run into a ton of teammates over the years who are also coaches now, and that is so fun. But I wouldn't say like performance wise that I was like super pumped with how everything turned out.
I understand, but I mean that's definitely some awesome experience that you get to have for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like it's just like I wouldn't have done anything different. Like I'm so thankful that I got to live in San Francisco and I made a whole slew of awesome friends and had these great experiences. And I don't think I would have had that in Eugene. It would have just been
Yeah.
me and then Peters and my coach who I love tremendously, but it just would have been a different feeling.
I understand. Yeah, I completely get what you're saying. So obviously you had those awesome experiences, but then obviously now you're in Portland, Oregon again. So
Yeah.
when did you start moving back from San Francisco back
Yeah.
to
I moved back probably before you were born in 2006.
Oh,
Um,
almost got you.
okay. 2006, and I just ran for fun. I ran some marathons. I was a teacher. My family's all here. I live next to Forest Park, which we were talking about earlier, just an awesome place for running on trails. And I just really enjoyed running. And I worked on my teaching for a while. And then after like, I think it was I probably was here for about, I don't know, 2017, so 11 years. And I had two small children. They were 2 and 4 at the time. And I decided to work part-time because I wanted to be a great mom and a great teacher. And like I say this all the time, like any type A, like distance runner, I was like, well, now that I'm working part-time, like I have extra time. I should like add coaching in. So I reached out to the head coach, Eric Detman at Lincoln, and asked if I could show up and hold a stopwatch. And he interviewed me and he said, yeah, you seem like a good fit. And so in like around 2017, I started coaching track.
That's awesome. So you said track. When did you start coaching cross too?
So I had only the intentions of coaching track and only coaching 2 days a week. And then Eric convinced me, like, you got to come out for cross. And I like resented, or not resented, but I pushed away that idea. And then I just like fell in love with the sport all over again. And I was like, this is like what I meant to do. Like, it's teaching and it's running all in one. Like, those are my two passions. And so he convinced me, and I was like, yeah, of course. Like, I've got all this time. And which I didn't, but like, yeah, I started coaching cross country the next season. And now instead of 2 days a week, I'm there 6 days a week. So it's pretty great.
So what do you teach now? Are you still in second grade?
No, so I ended up putting a leave in right before COVID hit, like a month before COVID hit. And so I took a leave and then we started Wildwood running. And so I just haven't gone back yet. So I sub now in the neighboring elementary school, but I haven't gone back.
Oh, I thought you did. I'm sorry, my bad. But I mean,
It's fine.
that's actually awesome. I would love to have you as a sub. I would say that. I'll tell you what, if you were to have us in strength, I wouldn't put the music on. We just have you sing. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah. Senorita, perfect.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I remember you giving us that awesome speech. Thank you, by the way.
Yes.
And also, I didn't I forgot the song, but now obviously I remember. So for reference, every week during cross country season, My team would choose a song of the week essentially, and someone would choose that. And I forget which week, but one week we had Marie pick it, and she picked "Senorita" by Justin Timberlake. I enjoyed the song. I mean, I had
I
never
love
heard
it.
it before. I mean, I now when I hear it, I think of you because I remember one time it did actually come on, and I feel like once you heard the song before and have a meaning to it, you notice it more because
Yes.
I feel like that's when with not just your song, but multiple songs are like
Yeah.
that. And
Well,
I
when your
want
coach reached out to me, I had no idea. He's like, "What's your favorite song?" And so I just told him I had no idea that you guys were going to dissect it the way you did.
I hope you enjoyed our answers. Some of them are
Yeah.
good, some of them are bad. We pick song lyrics that we enjoy and we have different meaning to and we explain it. And what is just for them, what is your favorite lyric from the song?
Oh, um, I wouldn't even be able to tell you just the whole thing. For me, it's like the feeling I get when I listen to it. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So when you went into coaching, obviously you're a little new to it,
Yep.
but you still have a lot of experience and a lot of things that you've learned over time period. What are some of the things that you've brought as an athlete into coaching?
Yeah. I think my love for the sport, I think that's pretty obvious. And then I think my teaching background, like I feel like I had never taught or worked with high schoolers, but I felt like being able to connect with people. And, one of my biggest, I think, things that I worked on as a teacher is like that relationship piece and really feeling like my students connected with me and knew that I absolutely cared and loved for them and wanted them. For me, it was like getting them to read, right? That was a big thing in second grade and first grade, but like, so being able to connect with them in that way. So same thing here. I just wanted to be able to connect with the athletes in a way that felt like really authentic and, led with love and care and all of those things. And I think hopefully they felt that. But then I think also just having my own perspective as a, female bodied athlete and then in what we navigate in a way that might be different than what boys navigate. And so I think I was able to bring kind of those things as well. And then like I like to win. Like I like to compete. I like to perform. And I don't think winning has to be winning the race. Winning can be like your own winning, right? And so I want to see people set really big goals and like be scared that they're not going to get them. And maybe they do and maybe they don't. But like watching people like chase those is so fantastic. And to know that I can be a tiny piece of that feels really good in its own self.
What would you say, like choosing one thing, what would you say the biggest thing that you brought in as a runner, not necessarily a teacher, but
Yeah.
as a runner, what did you say the biggest thing you brought in is?
I think that because I think partly because I've been in this sport so long that I think that I like understand how races can unfold.
Okay.
And I think that I don't always know how I don't necessarily know how all the racers in the race from other schools what they're going to do, but I feel like I can read my athletes' strengths well enough to support them in that way. And so I think that like a lot of times newer runners don't understand like they just think like, oh, I got to run this pace and I'm just going to run 80s and then I'm going to have my PR, not realizing like there is a race that dictates your pace. There are other people that can affect how that goes. So like how can you think like if it goes out this way, what might you do differently? Are you going to take the lead to make it go at 80s? Or if the race is like really hot, like what are you going to do? Are you going to be okay going 75s for a lap or two? And how is that going to work out? So I think being in so many race situations and also being someone who doesn't really control races, like, right, I was a sitter and kicker. So like knowing that I was able to adapt to races, I think is a strength that I can offer to our athletes.
It's definitely a good thing to have, especially knowing that like so you say to control that, are you like yelling during the race if something happens, what to do, or are you just telling that pre-hand?
A little bit, but most of it's ahead of time. Like, how are you thinking about this going into it? Because we at Lincoln don't have a lot of kids who are like have been running for years. We do
Yeah.
for sure have some, but even if they have been running prior to this, they're still in a new situation with new people and maybe in a different place in the pack than they were in middle school. So yeah, ahead of time, like talking through those things, I think is something that, and then also I think like helping people find their own confidence. And I think a lot of people and coaches are really good at like saying like, hey, this is what you've done. Like you can do this. But for me, it's a more like, what do you need? And how can you give that to yourself, right? Like I can come up and be like, you've run this time, this workout was amazing, you've done all this work, yay, 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 good job, you've got this. But that's only going to put a band-aid on the moment for now. So what can I do for you to figure out how to build your own confidence, your own emotional well-being, your own like race strategies? And so like I do a lot of that like questioning so that they can then like write down things or brainstorm, and then we come back and talk about it more, or mantras that I think that help them a lot during the process.
Yeah, I mean, definitely that's very helpful, especially as an athlete. Not
Yeah,
only do you have great race experience, so does Coach Eric. So, I mean, that would be great for a definitely great dual coach there.
yeah,
So, I also feel that it's also great to have like you kind of covered it for a quick second, the same gender coach as you on the team. I feel like that's really helpful because you're more related to that person. I feel like we have one of those for the girls.
yeah,
And I feel like that's very helpful for them. I know it's very helpful for me. I mean, I am blessed to have a couple guy coaches on the team, but
yeah,
I mean, we all have our own related relations with
yeah,
each other. And I feel like it's just easier to relate because you have the same experiences.
yeah, for sure. And I think that's one reason Coach Eric hired me is he was like, you have something that I don't have, and you're a female and I'm male, and you can relate to, there are some people who are going to relate to you in a way that they will never relate to me purely based on that. And I think that that's been something that's been helpful in our program.
So I'm just going to kind of skim over this topic, but you were very, very successful this year and you guys qualified for NXM, which is absolutely awesome. And you
Yes.
guys are pretty young, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're losing a couple seniors, but we got a lot coming in too, like freshmen and sophomores and juniors coming up too. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
So what are you looking forward to as a coach for the next coming years?
you know, like obviously, like yeah, going to NXN, potentially winning a state title, like all those things are like really fun to dream about. But to be honest, like just to be part of this culture that's been created at Lincoln is, and I know coaches say that all the time, so it's like, come on, but it's so true. Like I mean, watching athletes evolve over, I love it, OIT. Love watching athletes evolve over 4 years is like, it's just magnificent. And every year is different. And like some years the teams gel in different ways than other years. And you see it yourself, right? Like as you're navigating it as an athlete as well. So I'm just really excited to be able to like sometimes just sit back and be part of it, and sometimes be like someone who's like helping the process go. But ultimately, like we have dreamers on our team. We have people who just dream really big, and I like relate to that so well because that's who I still am and who I've always been. And so just being able to be like keep dreaming, and like I'm going to lift you as much as I can, as well as the other coaches and the other teammates and parents and everyone. But that just feels so exciting to me to know that like we have people who aren't like, oh, we've done this, we're never going to get there again. They're like, what are we going to do next year? And that feels really cool.
That's definitely awesome to have.
Yeah.
So obviously, I think you're wearing it. Are you wearing a Wildwood sweater
Yes,
right now?
I am.
What is
Wildwood.
Wildwood?
So, I mean, Wildwood's a lot, but Robin and I, so Robin McGillis at Central Catholic, we started I guess a organization, is now a nonprofit, where we focus on supporting female-bodied athletes, mainly runners, and their coaches in providing education around, changing bodies, navigating puberty, getting your period, building confidence, nutrition, emotional well-being, mental health, like all the things. And we have been to a lot of clinics around the country, a lot of trainings ourselves as athletes. And there's just not a lot of information on how, a female athlete is different than a male athlete. And there are differences, especially in high school and middle school, when bodies are changing and hormones are coming about. I didn't want to say erupting, but in some ways they are. And so, yeah, so we provide education, and we have and community and support for in programming in that way.
That's awesome. So I do
Yeah.
have a couple questions that I always
Yeah.
ask at the end. Definitely
Mhm.
want to maybe I definitely want to hear one of these from you.
Okay.
So what if you were a professional runner now, you're like
Yeah.
you can compete with anyone on the planet. Um, what is one runner that you would have a rivalry with or you'd love to race?
Well, I don't think I'd ever want to be a steeplechaser, but I think Emma Coburn is so badass. Like the amount of years that she has put in this work, and I feel like, I mean, I never met her, but like through social media and things like that, like her love of running and sport and her family, like yeah, I think it would be cool to like toe the line with her if I was really good because like I mean, she's kind of the queen of the steeplechase right now. So
Yeah, she is. She's very
yeah,
successful. That's
yeah.
that's a great pick. I did not think that was gonna be what it was, but that was a great pick.
Hey, thank you.
So also, what is one dad joke? What is your favorite one?
I hear him. Well, I know who fed you this question. My favorite dad joke, there's so many. What is the one that I've heard recently? I don't even know. My son has a joke book. I'm in his room right now. I should find one. What did the ocean say to the shore?
Oh, I don't know.
Nothing. It just waved.
I don't think I've ever heard that. That's good. I've
Yeah.
never heard that one.
There's a lot of really good ones, and I wish I could come up with one, but yeah, that's that Eric tells every day over and over and over. But yeah, that's the one.
He actually didn't tell me to say that,
Oh, he
but
didn't? I thought for sure he did.
I always say that I always ask that at the end of every
Oh
interview.
my God. That's awesome.
But this one was sent by him. If
Mm.
you were the head coach at Lincoln High School, what is one thing that you would change or do differently?
Oh, God. Nothing, Eric. What would I change or do differently? Let's see. I don't know. I mean, I think that I would, being like the elementary school teacher in myself, I think I would have more like um helping that like our leaders kind of create a little bit more like spirit days, not
Mm.
spirit, but like, we had a twin day and the kids loved it and they connected and they took photos and maybe a tie-dye day or something like that. So I don't know, maybe something in that regard. But otherwise, I think it's pretty good.
So finally, last question.
Yeah.
If you were to go back in time and tell young Marie one thing, it doesn't have to be about running, anything in general. If you were to go tell young Marie one thing, what would that one thing be?
You are more than running. Don't worry about it.
I like that. Yeah, you
Yeah.
definitely covered that earlier. And so I think
Yeah.
that's really important. You said you really stressed out about it, not
Yep.
just crying over the phone after first practice at Oregon, but just in general.
Yeah. It was important for me for sure.
So now finally, I feel like I do have to ask this. Are the Bills winning
Yeah.
the Super Bowl?
Oh my goodness. I don't know if they're winning the Super Bowl, but they're winning this weekend. They're beating, I think they're playing the Chiefs.
They are.
I should say, like, I am a Bills fan, but I don't like look way ahead. I'm more of a Bills fan because I'm supporting my son, right? And his love for the Bills. But yes, I mean, if we beat the Chiefs, that would be amazing. So I'm going for it.
I am a little salty. I am a Steelers fan. You guys knocked
Oh,
us out last week.
no. I was texting our friend Brian Fleckenstein, like, hey, go Pittsburgh. Not really.
That's all right. I love seeing the videos of your son at the I
Yeah.
think it's like a Bills restaurant. And
Well, that's what's hard for me is he's 10 and he's always like, "Are we going to the Bills bar today?" And I'm like, "Oh, am I like implanting like that a bar is cool to my 10-year-old?" But yeah, we go to the Bills establishment every Sunday. And he came 2 weeks ago, he came an hour and a half late because he was at baseball. And everyone was like, "Where is he?" We were losing. And then as soon as he got there, they turned the game around and he won. They won. So they all think he's like their lucky, lucky little guy.
I love seeing like the videos of him like with the Josh Allen, like big
Yes.
cut out, walking
Yes.
around. It's
As
awesome.
soon as they score, he just runs and no one's allowed to touch it until they score. Otherwise, it's bad luck. And he just holds that huge head and just runs around. So it's
That's
amazing.
so awesome. I
Yeah.
love seeing those videos.
Yeah.
Well, thank
And we have
you.
no family in Buffalo. Like we have no connection. He just one day wanted a Diggs jersey and now he's a Bills fan. So
I don't blame him. Stephon Diggs is awesome.
yeah, he is. He's pretty good.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your night tonight. It was definitely awesome getting to talk to you and learn some of your experiences. I'm sure not all of them, but
Yeah.
that's for another time. But thank you so much. You're absolutely amazing, and I'm thankful that you definitely came on. And I'll definitely see you around when I come to Portland next time. We'll make sure
But
we get in lunch again because I'll tell you what, that I don't forget where we went, but there was like a sandwich place that we went to. It was really
yes.
good.
So good. Yes, absolutely. And thank you for having me on. It was wonderful chatting with you.
Absolutely. Thank you. I hope you have a great rest of your night.
Thanks, you too.